Hey, folks. As a teacher, I get to deal with a dreaded, even hated task: homework. Now, over the years, I've kind of gone back and forth, as I think a lot of teachers have. And ultimately, I've sort of decided I really don't think that homework in and of itself has inherent value. I don't think that assigning homework teaches responsibility, which is what we sometimes hear, or that completing homework helps students learn responsibility, which is sort of a different way of saying the same thing. I've found that students tend to complete homework for one of two reasons. The first is that they were told to, um, by the teacher who assigned it, and possibly by a parent or guardian. However, I'm not sure that blind obedience is the sort of skill that I want students to master. The other reason is transactional. They complete the assignment because it's for a grade, or the assignment itself, such as studying for a test, isn't graded, but it's connected to something that will be graded, such as a test, or doing some reading for an advanced placement class that there's going to be a guided discussion on, and that's for a grade. Same sort of idea. But I do think there is value in homework, and here's why. Some years back, I think before COVID, though I'm really not certain how many years before that it was, I came across some mentions of the work of an 19th century German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. Ebbinghaus studied memory, and this was groundbreaking work at the time because a lot of people thought that you can't study what's inside a person's head because you take off their school and they're going to die. You can't look at these things. But he developed a methodology that allowed him to track the way that information is retained and forgotten. What he discovered was that learning loss is not only cumulative, it's exponential. So, what that means is after taking in new information, the sharpest rate of decline in recalling that information occurs within the first 20 minutes. And the rate of forgetting declines after that until it sort of evens out. After about a day, it tends to the rate at which forgetting occurs. There is still more forgetting going on, but the rate at which it occurs tends to taper off. So it's about, you lose about the same amount the next day and the next day. A similar concept that he discovered was that if he took a list of items and memorized them and then waited until he couldn't remember any of them, and then if he went back to the original list, it took him less time to learn that list of items. What that indicated was that somehow in his brain, that list wasn't completely gone. He wasn't able to pull back from it, but there was something there that made it easier to relearn it. So both of these concepts are important. This led to the idea of what is now known as spaced repetition. The idea that you go back to information that you've learned and review it after a short amount of time has passed so that there's some effort in trying to recall it. This is why language learning programs such as Duolingo, the app, provide in-game bonuses for learners who come back in the morning and in the evening, or at least daily. So there's some frequency to how the material is reviewed. These language learning apps will also include previously learned information as you're learning new information. So again, that's spaced repetition. So based on this, it seems reasonable to think that students would benefit from going back to what they'd studied that day or what they'd done in class and reviewing it so that what they learn comes back to them more easily the next day in class or later on when the material is reviewed at the end of a unit for a test. There's been a lot of research done on self-reporting of how much homework students do, how much homework teachers assign, observational studies. There's been a lot of research done on homework over the past several decades. And what it seems to indicate is that homework in the early elementary grades has minimal effect and may actually be harmful for students' learning in that it can create an antipathy for school and an antipathy for learning. Students don't want to do this, they become more resistant to learning. However, there's also some research that indicates as students get older, there is more benefit to reviewing that material on their own independently. By the time students get to high school, the positive benefits of homework tend to increase even more, so that there is some statistical evidence that completing homework in high school helps you learn what you're trying to learn. Sorry, students. But here's what I think is the most important point about homework and learning in general. You can't cheat your own brain. Assigning homework doesn't matter a whole lot. If students don't do the practice, they won't get any benefit. And this is where that second reason, transactional homework, becomes a problem. Because if the point of the homework is to get a good grade for turning it in, then there's minimal benefit to doing the homework yourself. It is incredibly common for students to dash something off at the last minute or to copy answers from a friend, or in some cases, look in the back of the book. And while that may get them the grade that they want, it defeats the purpose of actively trying to think about and pull from what has already been learned so that that spaced repetition helps that learning stick. Let's be honest, teachers face some challenge in classroom management, getting students to focus on and complete work that is assigned during the class period when the teacher's right there and can redirect off task behavior as needed. When students are told to complete work on their own, it's far less likely to happen. Let's leave it at that. And honestly, that is the main reason I stopped assigning homework. If you're a teacher, you know this concept. The students who need the practice are the ones who are least likely to do it. And the students who have a 99 but really want that 100 probably already know the material, don't need the practice as much, but man, they're going to do that homework so they get those points. So, as a teacher, I try to be really intentional in what I assign, making sure that students understand the purpose of what they're doing and how it relates to what they're learning. Ultimately, I think that regular, just mini review of skills, concepts, and information that's been learned, going over that regularly is absolutely helpful for students to increase their understanding of what they're studying. Given the research, I do think that regular, spaced repetition, brief review of the skills and information learned inside class, going to review it outside of class, is helpful for learning for students who are adolescents or older. A while back, I did a homework experiment where students reflected on what they were doing, how much, and what skill improvement they saw. Um, what it showed me was that was really where I discovered that the students who followed directions the most in class, who were least likely to get off task, as well as the students who were very focused on earning the grade that they wanted, they were the two groups most likely to complete assignments. And even in that case, when they knew it wasn't for a grade, it became less of a priority to them. Ultimately, as a teacher, I can't do the work for them. I can't learn the material for them. So I can provide suggested practice that students can use. But I also have to be willing to understand that it's probably not going to happen. And I need to structure my course so that the essential parts of it happen in class. So I'm still thinking about the best ways to get student buy-in to regular practice inside and outside of the classroom so that they learn as effectively as possible. In the meantime, I'd like you to remember that regular, repeated, ongoing practice is the best way to work toward mastery of skills, concepts, and understanding. The best way to develop a foundation for knowledge that really lasts. Of course, I would be delighted to hear your stories about homework, good or bad. So leave me a note down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.